Hi there, welcome to No Nonsense Whisky. My name's VinPF and on today's episode we're going to be covering something probably a little bit special that I wouldn't have ordinarily reached for myself. But this here is the Lagavulin Offerman Edition, the 11-year-old, and this is the Charred Oak Cask. And we'll get into a little bit more about that in a moment, but I just want to take a few moments to explain how I've even got this bottle. You might have seen in my kind of most recent Whisky In, Whisky Out, an absolute legend at my local whisky club down here in Balsall Common. A guy called Alex, he lent me 3 bottles that were kind of near the kind of heel kills. You can see here, there's not much knocking around left in that. And he said, do you want to take a few of these bottles back and review them, save you having to buy those bottles, see what you think. Of course, that's a great way of me doing the channel, so yes, of course I did. I've got a couple of other ones as well that I'll go through over the next few months, so don't worry, the next few reviews aren't going to be a massive thank you to Alex, but there's going to be a couple coming in the new year as well, of course. So the first one then is this Lagavulin 11-year-old Charred Oak Cask. Beautiful. So this is a obviously 11-year-old, 46%. Not entirely sure on the price of this, but on the research I've done, it's around about that sort of £70 mark. Pretty sure this is already gone. Unlikely that you're going to be able to pick this up for anywhere near retail, but if you are able to, then fair enough. We'll get into whether I like it or not a bit later on. The main thing to note about this, of course, is the Offerman Edition part of it all. And just in case you don't know, I'm sure if you're watching this video you probably already do, so please bear with me while I explain that. But in case you didn't know, the Offerman part of it is a guy called Nick Offerman, which he's an actor, an American actor, and he was a pretty major role in a show called Parks and Recreation. One of my more favourite shows, I have to say, and I started watching that based purely on little videos I'd seen of this guy drinking Lagavulin, and I was like, I'm going to check this programme out, and it turned out to be really good fun. Just typical kind of sitcom fare, but it's just a really interesting programme. And his character, Ron Swanson, drinks Lagavulin occasionally on screen and talks about Lagavulin on screen. Because of that, Lagavulin somehow got in touch with Nick Offerman, or vice versa. I'm not sure how that kind of smushed together, but still, we're glad that it did. And he's now released 3 different varieties under his name, kind of Offerman editions. So that's really it. There's nothing else going on here. I'm not sure if he personally selected these from casks or whatever, or just slapped his name on there. But out of all of the kind of TV-related, whiskey-related collaborations, this is probably one of my kind of favourite ones because it doesn't seem to be too corporate. Obviously, we're talking about money making here, of course, but this seems to be like a really good nod to something that was just a happy accident, and I really like that, just to put that out there. So let's get into the actual whiskey and see what we've got in the glass. I've poured a little bit left here. The other thing to say, of course, is that because I've got so little of this left, I can almost guarantee this is going to be in the Whisky In, Whisky Out, in the out section in the next one, so make sure you keep an eye out for that. Not sure about added colour or anything like that, so we're not going to go into that today. Let's get straight into the nose and see what we've got. Lovely. I love that. I love Lagavulin. I don't often buy Lagavulin, and I said earlier that I don't think I would have reached for this, and I hadn't. I like the show and I like Lagavulin, but I just haven't reached out for either of these. Special editions don't do well for me, especially when they sell out so quickly. I don't really like to get involved in the melee of the FOMO and all stuff like that, so that's the only reason I haven't got this. If this was kind of like a mass-produced thing, I probably would have got it by now. But anyway, bags of briny seaweediness on the front. Get a kind of deep kind of treacle note out of it as it develops. And at the back end, it's almost a little bit mentally, a little minty on the back end. Really nice. It's a classic Lagavulin nose, nothing too out there. And as I nose it, it completely reminds me that I absolutely forgot to talk about the cask choices in this. So a little bit of in between for you. Nice and unprofessional like, but this is basically a mixture of US ex-bourbon casks and European ex-red wine casks that have been shaved down and re-charred in kind of like a really heavy char. So hence the charred oak thing. Let's get onto the palate then. Again, typical Lagavulin fare. Lots of rich smoke and peat up front. It kind of gets a bit iodine-y, TCP vibes from it. Not a whole heap of it, but it's definitely in there. And the really interesting thing is if you keep plying away with this, on the side of your tongue, I'm getting some nice sweet aromas, some sweet tastings, and getting some kind of vanillas and some honeys off of that. The finish is really long, really smoky. Basically, just a lovely Lagavulin. Now, for me, I'm a big peat fan these days. So, yeah, a winner for me. Cost-wise, obviously, I didn't pay for this bottle. I only got, like, probably this much, a wee squidge at the bottom there. So I'm not too worried about that. But in terms of, like, original purchasing value, for the experience of the Lagavulin, I don't think it's quite on the money for the price. But, that said, looking at the increase in price for the 16, the standard 16, plus looking at the collaboration of this, yeah, it kind of fits. It kind of fits. If you're paying for this on secondary market, absolutely not. But the 70 quid is not too bad. I would have liked to seen it either a little bit lower or the ABV a little bit higher to really make me want to go, yeah, this is a good one. But yeah, I don't think if I'd have bought this myself, I don't think I'd have been disappointed because I'm a fan of Lagavulin, fan of the show, blah blah blah. But if I'd have just been a fan of Lagavulin, then I think there are other bottlings you can pick. You know, there's no real reason for you to rush out and get this because it's got the Offerman Edition all over it. If you don't care about any of that and you're only into your Lagavulin and you just want to try more expressions, then I mean, basically, it's one of those bottles where it's like, sure, get it. You know, if you're into Lagavulin, you know how much these bottles cost. Simple as. But it wouldn't be my first choice out of all of the Lagavulins in the world. Still, a lovely job nonetheless, and I'm glad I've got to try it. Look out for my my whiskey kill, because I mean, I don't think that'll even last a week now. But in any case, I'll say cheers, and I'll see you again on more No Nonsense Whiskey videos. Nice one.